It's a privilege to be on here with everybody. And yes, Dan has taken the bold and exciting step of creating a conference in the way that he envisioned conferences should be run. But Dan, before we get to talk about that and talk to Matt as well, could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Asterisk in the first place, and then how you got involved more in the community?
Yeah, so it must be probably close to 8 years ago now, maybe even 9. Time moves fast nowadays. We were implementing a contact center at the place that I worked, and I was a web developer. So I got kind of chucked in to make this connection between what we were implementing, which we didn't know at the time was Asterisk, with our in-house CRM system. We then gave up on that system, and then we brought in Asterisk and went, the thing that we were using was Asterisk. So that's great. So I ended up creating this AMI connector between Node.js and Asterisk. And then I went and spoke at Astricon the following year about connecting HTML5 and WebSockets and Asterisk all together. And then I went and worked at Digium for a little bit on the Bespoke project. And then after that, I've been doing a load of WebRTC type work and an Asterisk work and general telephony / RTC type work.
Great. Okay. Nice intro. And of course, when you worked with Bespoke and on different things, you would have worked with the lovely Matt Fredrickson.
Absolutely. And then I had also, I also got training from David at the very, very beginning. So I'm like connected to everyone on this call, which is quite nice. David came in and gave training to, David's the reason why I talk at Astricon, so it's all his fault. I got training from David, so did a load of other people at the company that I worked at. And David said, this is really cool. You should come and talk about this AMI thing at the time. And then I went on to work at Bespoke for 18 months, almost 2 years, with Matt Fredrickson.
So I'm not really a programmer, but I do have a thread running all the time in the back of my mind, and that is speakers for Astricon. So as I travel around talking to people or teaching people, when something interesting pops up, I think, that should be an Astricon talk. And that's how Dan got involved, which is great. So I want to hand over to Matt now, lead of the Asterisk project, to talk a little bit about what he gets up to in the world of Asterisk. But then to come on to the conference that you've organised, Dan, and the reason why it's relevant for Matt to do that is Matt is going to be participating in that conference. So over to you, Matt.
All right. So I'm actually really grateful to be able to be here with such a high caliber group of people. I just have to make a note, at least a little side note, that the first time I met Dan was, I think it was at Astricon giving a talk, and I was really impressed with his talk. I enjoyed it a lot. And then I later got the opportunity to actually work with him, because I worked with him on the Bespoke project for a few years. So I got pulled away into secret Digium projects for 4 or 5 years or something like that. And traditionally, as a side note, I'm a hardcore low-level developer. So I've worked traditionally in C land and system programming land, and the opportunity instead shied far, far away from web application level development. Dan got to help baptize me by fire into web application land, and I got to learn to take JavaScript seriously as a programming language, which actually was a lot better than I expected after a while. And but I have to send props out to Dan. He was one of the most intelligent developers that I'd worked with on that team, and it was a pleasure to work with him. And so when I heard that he was going to try to do a conference in the UK, I thought that it would be, it seemed like whatever he put his mind to, he usually did a very good job at, and I wanted to try to be a part of that. And so I was super excited about it. But typically what I do is I take care of the Asterisk project, as David mentioned. That involves working with community members, that involves working with engineers, it involves working with customers of Digium, and trying to make all their feedback come together and help influence the direction of the project. as far as my involvement in CommCon, I'm going to talk a little bit. I try to talk a little bit about the status of the Asterisk project, because there's a lot of times with open source projects, you typically only hear about them, what's happening or what's new. It's what is when the last time the package on your system's been updated, and you go look at it and you're like, oh, it hasn't broken anything yet, so I'll just keep using it the way I do it. And sometimes if you're super on the ball or it's super important to your business, you'll look at the changelog or something like that and be like, oh, okay, let's see what's different or whatever. Most people don't do that. But they do like to have the opportunity to hear somebody speak about what's new and what's different. And Asterisk as a project is evolving on an ongoing basis. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about what's happened in the last year or so with Asterisk 15, some of the major changes that went into it, a little bit more about what's up and coming and what's going to be expected in a future Asterisk release, presumably in Asterisk 16. So that's kind of the deal with that. I actually had a quick question. If you don't mind, is it all right if I ask a question to Dan, David? Is that all right? And Emily? What inspired you to do a conference about open source telephony? Because actually, having worked in the industry for 17 years, I guess that's how long I've been working in it. I have learned that doing a conference is a ton of work, and sometimes it's thankless work. And so I'm really curious about what inspired you to do to go to that great amount of effort to put a conference together. Because as an attendee, there's a huge amount of value, but I think nobody really knows how much work it is, like the organizer, and nobody appreciates that. So I would love to hear that.
So because I come from the web world as well as telephony now, I've been to a load of different types of conferences. So I guess I'd gone to enough web conferences and I'd gone to enough telephony conferences to go, well, there's room for something else. In web world, there's a great conference called NodeConf EU, and that's a conference for the Node community, and it's held in Ireland by a company called Nearform. And luckily, I went and worked with Nearform for quite a long time as well. But I'd already been to NodeConf EU, and the thing that was great about NodeConf EU was we all stayed at the same place, we all ate together, we all went and did activities together, and some of the best contacts that I've ever made in the Node community / the web community were at NodeConf EU, where I just sat down for breakfast and sat down and started a conversation with someone. They ended up being from Apple, or they ended up being from PayPal. And that's pretty kind of cool in itself. And that's not necessarily to say that there's something wrong with Astricon or there's something wrong with ClueCon or Cametilio World. It's just something different. So I wanted to kind of bring some of what we do in the web industry over to the telephony industry. But then also, we didn't really have an event in Europe that gave good access to FreeSwitch developers or Asterisk developers. Like the Asterisk team or David goes over to Cametilio World, or they go to OpenSips, or they go to VoIP Today. But none of Cametilio World is very Cametilio driven, like it should be. OpenSips is very OpenSips driven, and that's how it should be. There are other talks to do with Asterisk and to do with WebRTC at those conferences, but there's nothing kind of broad. So I wanted to do something a bit more broader. So there were kind of two fronts there.
Thanks, Dan. That answered my question.
Yeah, you say broad, Dan, and I can see that the subject matter is indeed very. You've made it a kind of a very special event in the way that it's quite a cozy number of people. Was there any deliberate reason behind that?
Yeah, so that's a huge difference to say. Astricon, you get 700, 800 people, don't you?
Thereabouts.
Yeah. And ClueCon, I know, is roughly the same, maybe a little bit less. Cametilio World is definitely more than what we've got at CommCon. At CommCon, we've got 130 total. So that includes sponsors, and that includes attendees, and that includes speakers. So there's about 75 attendees, and the rest of them are for sponsors and speakers. And really, the huge driving factor behind that is how many rooms this hotel has. So because I wanted everyone under the same roof, I'm then limited by the number of hotel rooms I can book. So we booked out the whole of Wootton House in Surrey, a beautiful English countryside house. It's huge. The grounds are huge as well. It's going to be kind of from a stunning perspective, it's going to be great. But yeah, we're limited by the number of people we can actually fit in and accommodate. Whereas at Astricon, just because of the very nature of Astricon, everyone stays at different hotels, or it's at a big hotel that can handle that number of people. But even if I could have booked a hotel that had 700 rooms, I still wouldn't have done it, because the whole point of CommCon is this kind of community feel, this I really hate the word, but this intimate feel between attendees and between speakers and attendees. So the fact that you can go in, you over the 3 and a bit days, you can go and speak to every single attendee / speaker. And that's just not something you can do at the bigger events.
Dan, I hear you say that you hate the word intimacy. Is this because you fear intimacy? Sorry, it's turned into a whole different call now, hasn't it?
This feels like the VUC after hours.
Exactly.
Maybe we should shy away from this direction.
I was only messing around. Yeah, I mean, I would just like to say that from an Astricon point of view, we do seek to kind of keep everybody together. For people, is a lot of people to keep together, and so obviously people do kind of fragment into groups and things. Great. Okay. Well, thank you for telling us a little bit about the reasoning behind CommCon. And Matt, you've started to talk about your involvement there. Have you, Matt, had a chance to look at some of the other speakers that are going to be there just yet?
I have a little bit. There's a few people that I admire and respect a lot that are going to be there. I'm excited to see Jared. I think Jared Smith's going to be there, who I like very much. He worked at Digim for a number of years, and I got to know him while he was working here. And I'm super excited to be able to see him and hear from him. He's going to be talking about, I think, the 7 Habits of Open Source, Happy Open Source Developers.
Great title.
Yeah, which I as an open source developer, I can appreciate. And actually, there's a number of others, but I'm pulling blanks right now. But it was a pretty loaded deck. I think there are representatives from the Free Switch project that are there. Who else? I think that there was there somebody from I think Daniel's coming too, right? Daniel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've got
project. Yeah, go Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, no. We've got representation from all of the 4 major open source telephony projects. So OpenSIPs are going to be there. Kamet Elio are going to be there. You guys and Free Switch are going to be there. And then Jared's going to be there. Alison's going to be there.
Oh yeah.
When I said to Alison, "Do you want to come and speak at a country house in England?" She was like, "Absolutely." So
I'm sure Alison's going to be there. Flashed before her eyes.
All right. Yes. Zoa and Mira from Zoipa are going to be there, plus a couple of other people that you might not have heard of.
Okay, yeah, there's definitely a great set of speakers. What I find very gratifying in all of this is, of course, Asterisk was where everything started in terms of the popularization of open source telephony. And it's still relevant today, still very, very relevant in terms of, like you said, WebRTC. Asterisk was the first open source project to have WebRTC built in back in the days of Asterisk 11. And of course, in the same way that it helped drive the adoption of that, it really helped drive the adoption of SIP as well back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And Matt, you're a bit of an ISDN man back in the day. Those low-level protocols. So you would have seen that sort of emergent SIP coming along.
I did, yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, listen. Unless there's anything that people want to go through, giving a good account of why he's come up with CommCon. And Matt, you talked a little bit about how you're going to be participating. I know that everybody is looking forward to it, not just the speakers, but all the other participants are eagerly awaiting it. Is there any other questions that you, Emily, or you, Matt, would like to ask Dan over here in the UK?
How's the weather in the UK?
It's warmer than it was last week.
That's great. I heard there was like a snowstorm or something like that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there is actually snow today in some parts of the country, but down in the south here, it is relatively warm and sunny. In fact, I've had to put my blinds to shut the sunlight out because there's so much of it. Dan, what are, in your mind, the top 3 reasons people should attend CommCon this year?
Oh, that's difficult. No one's actually asked me that yet. Great venue, great speakers, and great activities. So a huge point for me with CommCon was to make CommCon in itself memorable. So I still remember going to NoConf, for example, in Ireland, and it was at a castle. And the evening activities, the meals, all the things that we went and did. We did Irish hurling. You probably don't know what Irish hurling is. It's like hockey, but seems more dangerous, like anything that the Irish do. So yeah, those kinds of things make a conference more memorable. Not to say that talks at a conference aren't memorable, but within a couple of months or a year, they're outdated, potentially. It's just because we work in this hugely forward-moving industry. And so you have to keep going forward to these new events to get more information. Whereas, I don't know, doing something like duck herding in the grounds of an English house, well, that's memorable. So I really wanted to make CommCon something that people would remember in 5 years' time.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about really are the ingredients in a kind of a community activity. You know, it's one thing to go to a load of talks and they're very valuable, but as you said right at the beginning, sitting down and talking to people over breakfast or over lunch or whatever it might be, you know, that's where the kind of real bonding happens. And of course, what we should not forget is on top of this layer of community and bonding is the driving forward of technology and the doing of mutually beneficial business.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I probably can't put a figure on the number of contacts that I've made at Astricon in the US. How many contacts could I now make with a UK/Europe centric type event? The two crowds do overlap, but inherently there are a ton of people that decide they don't want to go to the US for Astricon, and they don't want to go to the US for ClueCon, for example, or even the US for something like Signal from Twilio. We talked a lot about the VoIP track. We haven't really talked a lot about the WebRTC track. There's a ton of other people for the WebRTC track as well. So yeah, tons and tons of good content and tons of good contacts as well.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're probably in the position to wrap up. So thanks very much for telling us more about CommCon. Tell you what we haven't talked about, the dates, have we?
Oh, no, we haven't. So CommCon is running 25th to the 29th of June. And you might be going, that's 5 days. And Dan said earlier, it's about 3.5 days worth of content. So you arrive late on a Monday. Dinner's at like 6 o'clock at night. Hang on, let me just double check before I start. Welcome drinks are at 5 o'clock, so you have to check in between 1 and half 4. So yeah, you arrive late on the Monday, and then you've got a hotel room for that night, and there's activities and there's drinks and there's a meal, and then you wake up the very next morning and you don't have to get to the venue or anything. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are two track conference days. So in the morning there's 2 tracks. Then after lunch there's a combined talk. I wouldn't really say it's a keynote. It's a combined talk that's useful to both VoIP and to WebRTC type people. Then there's some workshops, and then there's dinner and activities. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Thursday night, there'll be some sort of event. And you don't have to worry about going and catching a plane or getting home because you've got a hotel room. And then you leave on Friday morning after having a nice breakfast. So there's really 3 days of content, plus the half a day, well, not even half a day on the Monday and the Friday morning to get there and to leave. So that's the dates. And if you want to go book a ticket, you can go to commcon.xyz or Z, as we say in England. And the tickets, the great thing about CommCon and the fact that the accommodation and the meals and everything are all included, there's one price to pay. So
Hold on a minute. You mean there's just one price to pay and everything's included?
Yeah, absolutely. Other than alcohol, I must kind of add that caveat. If you want alcohol at the bar, then you have to pay for that.
No attraction for me.
But yeah, so yeah, there's one price to pay. It's £1,600 for the whole week. So you have to get there, and then you pay £1,600 for the week, and that's pretty much it. Unless you drink an awful lot at the bar every night. But other than that, it's £1,600.
Unless somehow you end up responsible for Alison Smith's bar bill somehow.
Right. Saying that, I should probably say this. I'm pretty certain we haven't quite confirmed the actual day yet. But our friends Near and Eric from Cloud Onyx, they are sponsoring a bar bill one night. So we're going to traipse up to a pub that's about, I don't know, a kilometre up the road. It's a long road from this country lane. From this country house. It's about a kilometre probably. So not too far. And so we're going to go up to a pub, and then we're going to the bar bill is already paid by Cloud Onyx. So that would be a great night too.
Great stuff. And of course, Cloud Onyx are also sponsoring the Dangerous Demos at Astricon 2018 as well. So lots of fun and frolics there. Well, okay, well, that's great. I'm glad you've been able to give us a sense of what's going on and the key information about the event. Emily, thank you so much for very ably facilitating this session for us.